Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'll be showing you how I made this beautiful dress with a cutout at the back. If you would like to know how I made this, keep on watching and let's get started. I have the shoulder line, the chest line, the bust line, the under bust line, waist line, the hip line, and the dress length. Shoulder to the chest line is 8.5 inches, to the bust line is 11 inches, to the under bust line is 14 inches, to the waistline is 18 inches, to the hip line is 26 inches, and to the full length of the dress is at 38 inches. I'll go in with the shoulder measurements divided by 2. I'll mark that on the shoulder line and also mark it on the chest line. From the shoulder line, I'll come down by 1.5 inches and make a mark there, and I'm going to connect from that point to the chest line. Next, I'll go in with a neck width of 3.5 inches and a neck depth of 3 inches, and I'll connect it with my curve. After marking that, I'll connect from the shoulder slant to the neck width. On the chest line, I'll go in with the bust measurements divided by 4. From the shoulder line, I'll go up by 3 inches. At the 3 inches mark, I'll go in by 0.75. I'll connect those 3 points together to form the armhole. Next, I'll go in with my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2. I'll mark that on the waistline, on the bust line, and at the hip line, I'll go up by 2 inches and make the mark there. I'll connect those 3 points together with my ruler. Next, I'll go in by 0.75 on both sides of the dart line on the waistline. I'll go in by 0.75 on both sides, and I'll connect it to the top and bottom like you see me doing. On the waistline, I'll go in with the waist measurements divided by 4, and I'm going to replace the dart I have on the waistline and I'll mark it. On the hip line, I'll go in with the hip measurements divided by 4 and I'll connect the dots together. The difference between my front and the back half length is 2 inches, and that is what I'll be taking in as the bust dart. From the bust line, I'll come down to 2 inches and mark it and connect it to the bust point. On the under bust line, I'll go in with my round under bust measurements divided by 4, and whatever I have left there, I'm going to share it on the 2 sides there. I marked ½ inch on the side facing the center front, and I marked 0.75 on the side facing the side front, and I will connect it with my armhole curve like you see me doing. I'll be making use of the armhole princess dart for this pattern. Now from the shoulder slant, I'll come down to 4 inches and make a mark there. From that 4 inches mark, I'm going to connect it with my curve to the bust point. At that point, I'll come out by ½ inch on both sides and I'll connect it back into the bust point. By taking ½ inch on both sides of that line, that means I've taken in 1 inch for the dart there. So we have to replace that 1 inch back by remarking the armhole. Now, I'll separate the pattern from the waistline. We are going to finish up with the upper part first before going back to the lower part of the dress. Label your pattern after cutting in a way that you will understand. Now moving on to the lower part. Whatever you marked on the hip line, you are going to deduct 1 inch from it and mark that on the dress length line. And then you are going to connect the dots together with your curved ruler. The next step is to extend the dart line to the bottom of the paper. The nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2, mark it and extend that line to the top. You are going to cut from this line to the top of the paper and close your dart at the top. I'll use a masking tape to hold my dart in place, and I'm going to bring in another piece of paper and insert it into the middle of the space I have at the bottom there. Depending on how full you want the down part of this dress to be, you can do about 3 inches or 2.5 inches for the space you opened up there. After marking your preferred measurements, you are going to connect the lines back. At the side hem here, you are going to extend it by 2 inches. You can do 3 inches if you like. And after extending by 2 inches, I'm going to connect it back to the hip line. Now I'll go up by 1 inch just to create a bit of curve on the side, and I'll connect it back to the hem of the dress. At the top of the skirt part here, you will notice that after closing the dart, the waistline is not balanced. So you are going to correct that by taking about ½ inch away from the center front and cut it out. Now this is what your pattern will look like once you are done. This is what you should have for all the front pieces. I have the shoulder line, the chest line, the waistline, hip line, and the dress length. Shoulder to the chest line is 8.5 inches, to the waistline is 16 inches, to the hip line is 24 inches, and to the dress length line is 36 inches. I have a zip allowance of 1.5 inches by the side of the pattern. I'll go in with the shoulder measurement divided by 2. I'll mark that on the shoulder line and also the chest line. And from the shoulder line, I'll come down by 1 inch and connect it to the chest line. I'll go in with a neck depth of 1 inch and a neck width of 3.5 inches, and I'll connect that with my curve. From the shoulder slope, I'll connect with a straight line to the neck width. Next, I'll go in with the bust measurements divided by 4. I'll mark that on the chest line, and from the shoulder slope, I'll divide what I have left there into 2 and get the midpoint. At the midpoint, I'll go in by 0.5, and I'll connect those 3 points together to form the armhole. On the waistline, I'll go in with the nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2. I'll mark that on the waistline. On the chest line, I'll come down by 1 inch, and at the hip line, I'll go up by 2 inches and I'll connect the dots together. I'll go out by ½ inch on both sides of the dart leg on the waistline, and I'll connect to the top and bottom like so. On the waistline, I'll go in with the waist measurements divided by 4, and I'll replace the 1 inch dart I took. At the hip line, I'll go in with the hip measurements divided by 4, and I'll connect all the dots together with my curved ruler. From the shoulder line, I'll come down to 11 inches and make a mark there. And from the center back line, I'll go ahead and mark 6.5 inches from that point where I marked 11 inches. Now I am going to connect from that point to the waistline. Notice the way I am connecting. I'm using my curve to connect the sharp points. The next step is to extend the dart line to the chest line, and from the point where the cutout at the back will start from, I'll go out by 0.25 on both sides to tighten that part of the dress so that by the time we cut it out, it will not be gaping. I'm going to extend that line to the waistline like you see me doing. Now I'll separate the pattern from the waistline, and we are going to finish up with the upper part before going back to the lower part. of the dress. You are going to close the dart before you cut out this part of the back. After closing the dart, you are going to remark the line. Once you are done remarking the line, you are going to use your masking tape to hold the dart in place. And now I'm just going to cut it out. Now to the lower part of the dress. Whatever you marked on the hip line, you are going to deduct 1 inch from it and put it at the dress length line and connect the dots together. Now I'll extend the nipple to nipple measurement to the lower part of the pattern, and after that I'm going to close my darts. I'll close my dart and use a masking tape to hold it together, and I'm going to cut through the dart line. Just like we did with the front pattern, I'm going to bring in another piece of paper and place it underneath the pattern. Whatever measurement you used for the lower part at the front part, make sure it matches with the back. So if you opened up the pattern with about 2 inches for the front, make sure that it is the same thing with the back. And once you are done, you are going to connect the hem of the dress back. At the side hem, you are going to extend it by 2 inches and connect it back to the hip line. After that, I'll go up by 1 inch and connect to the hem of the dress. Just like I did with the front, after closing the dart, you will notice that the waistline is not balanced. Just take out about ½ inch from the center and then cut it out. Once you are done with your patterns for both the front and the back, before transferring to fabric, you can bring in the front pattern and make sure that the pattern matches up together. Before transferring to fabric, make sure that the side and everything is okay before you go ahead and cut on fabric. I have 2.5 yards of cream charming fabric here, and also I'll be using buttons for the upper part of the back and an invisible zipper for the lower part of the back. I also have my lining here. The lining is about 2 yards. And for this ready-made loops, I'm supposed to buy this in white, but I didn't get a white color when I went to the fabric store, so I opted for the black. When you're making yours, make sure that the color matches. Don't use a different color like I did with mine here. I have transferred my back pattern to fabric. I added ½ inch allowance at the top, at the side 1 inch and ½ inch at the bottom of the fabric. I have cut out my lining also. So for this back, I have 2 pieces for the main fabric and 2 pieces for the lining. This is the upper part for the back, ½ inch allowance all around the pattern. I only added 1 inch allowance to the side. I have 2 pieces for the main fabric and also 2 pieces for the lining. I am using the same fabric, the main fabric, as my lining. So for both the lining and the main fabric, I am using the same fabric. I am marking the wrong side of my fabric here with a pencil because I am working with a cream fabric and I don't want to have chalk marks on the fabric. Now I have placed the 2 pieces on each shoulder, right side facing, and I'll just go ahead and stitch the center back and along the opening we have at the back. But don't forget that you have to fix your ready-made loops in between one side of the back. You're going to fix it in between and then go ahead and stitch the center back and the opening along the back with ½ inch. This is after I was done stitching, and this is what we have. Make sure to notch all the sharp corners after stitching and press it properly. For the lower part, I've gone ahead to turn it with the lining, and this is what we have. I have my zip allowance open at the back, so what I'm going to do next is to go ahead and fix the zip to the back. Moving on to the front patterns, I have half-inch allowance all around the patterns. The only part I added 1 inch is the side. For the front part also, I am using the same fabric as my lining. So for each of these, for the center front, I have 2 pieces, one for the main fabric and one for the lining. And for the side front, I have 4 pieces, 2 for the main fabric and 2 for the lining. So I'm going to work on the main fabric first, go ahead and join the side front to the center front, and I'll do the same thing to my lining pieces also. To the lower part of the front, half inch at the top, half inch allowance at the bottom, and 1 inch allowance on the side. I'll take out my pattern now. I have also cut out my lining for the skirt part of the front, and this is what we have. What I'm going to do next is to go ahead and stitch the bottom of the skirt part. This is after I was done joining the front part, the upper part of the front. After joining the pieces together, please make sure to press it properly, and this is what you are going to have. You're just going to place it together, wrong side facing each other, because we are not going to turn the neckline of this upper part. So you're going to place it wrong side facing each other and just make a top stitch to hold the 2 fabric together. Now to the lower part, I've turned it with a lining, and the next thing I'm going to do is to join it along the waistline. I'll take it to the sewing machine and join it with half inch. This is after I was done joining the front part. Overlock the inner seams with your overlocker and press it properly. The next step is to join both the front and the back together on the side and along the shoulder. I have fixed my zip to the back and I have joined the upper part of the back to the lower part, and this is what we have. Now I'm just going to take it to the sewing machine and join the sides together. One tip on joining the side: when you are done taking your bust measurement and the waist measurement, from that waistline, just take it slantly to the bottom. No need to mark your hip measurement. Just mark a slant line from the waistline to the end of the dress. After joining the sides together, go ahead and join the shoulder. Join the shoulder fabric to fabric and lining to lining to give it a neat finishing. This is after I was done joining, and this is what we have. Overlock the inner seams after joining the side and press it properly, and this is what my dress is looking like now. The next step is to work on the collar. Now I am going to measure around the neckline of this dress from the back all the way to the front and to the back. I'm going to measure it, and whatever I get, I'm going to use it to cut out the collar. After measuring mine, I have about 18.5 there, and this is what I'm going to use to cut out my collar. So I have my SD on the table, and this SD is folded into 2. The first thing I did is to mark a line across the SD. And after marking the line, I'm going to divide the 18.5 I got earlier into 2 and mark it there. After marking, I'll get the midpoint and make a mark there. At the point where I marked the 9.25, I'll go up by 1 inch. From that 1 inch point, I'll take it with a straight line to the center point there. After marking that, I'll go ahead and mark the height of the collar, which is 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to mark the 1.5 inches and connect it together with my ruler. After marking that, I'm just going to connect the tip of the collar with my ruler also. And that will be all on the cutting of this collar. After cutting, notch the bottom part of the collar to indicate the part that will be attached to the neckline of the dress. I cut out 2 pieces of fabric and I pressed the collar on one side of the fabric, and I added ½ inch allowance all around the collar, and this is what I have. At the bottom part of the collar, you are going to fold in the fabric with about ½ inch inwards at the bottom part. This is after I was done folding one side. Go ahead and make a top stitch on the part where you folded. And after making the top stitch, you're going to stitch all around the allowance you have on the collar. You're going to stitch from one end to the other end. But don't forget to fix in your loops on one side of the collar before stitching. After stitching around the collar, go ahead and press it properly, and this is what you should have. Your allowance will be on one side and the other side of the collar would have been folded. So this is what you should have by the time you are done stitching around the collar. Now notch the center of the collar and also notch the center point of the dress. And you are going to fix the center of the collar to the center of the dress. The right side of the collar facing the wrong side of the dress. Once you are done pinning the center of the collar to the center of the dress, take the collar all around to the end of the neckline on both sides. And once you are done pinning, you are going to take it to the sewing machine and stitch with 1/2 inch. Once you are done stitching one part, you are now going to make a top stitch on the other part. This is after I was done fixing my collar, and this is what I have. So make sure to press the collar when you are done stitching. And now the next step is to work on the sleeves. Trim out any excess you have along the armhole. And then we are going to work on the sleeve. This is my basic sleeve pattern, and the length of this pattern is about 8.5 inches. You can make your sleeve length according to your preference, but this one here is about 8.5 inches. The part I marked earlier is the center of the sleeve, and from that center I went ahead to mark 5 inches. From that 5 inches point, I'm going to connect it to the other side of the sleeve using my curved ruler. The part I marked S is not needed, so I'm going to cut it out. Now please take note of the center of the sleeve. I'm going to use a ruler and my marker to mark the center of the sleeve to make it visible. After marking, I'm going to cut through that line. I'm not going to cut it entirely open. I'm just going to cut it so that we can have a little bit of slash and spread. I'll bring in another piece of paper now, and then I am going to place my sleeve pattern on it. Take note that I have a crease line on this new paper. This will indicate the center of my sleeve for me. In between the part I spread, I have about 1.5 inches there, and from that point I'll go up by 2 inches and connect it back into my sleeve. Just the way you see me marking it. After marking that, I'm going to cut it out. After cutting out, you will notice that the shape on this other side here is not curvy like it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to go in with my marker and make it curvy. And in between, please notch the center of the sleeve. It is important to notch that center point. Now I'll bring in my curved ruler now and make that point curvy. So you can cut out about 2 inches away from that side to give you that curvy shape. And this is what my sleeve is looking like now. I am going to transfer it to fabric. I folded my fabric into 2 and I'm going to place the sleeve on it. While cutting, I'm going to add 1/2 inch allowance all around the pattern. After cutting out your sleeve, notch the center point on the fabric like you see me doing. After cutting 2 pieces for the first sleeve, I'm going to cut out another 2 pieces for the second sleeve. I'll take out the pattern now and see what we have for the sleeve, but don't forget to notch the second sleeve also. This is how you're going to arrange your sleeve. You're going to match the notched point on each other. The sleeve is going to overlap on each other like this. You're going to match the point where you notched at the top together and overlap it like you see me doing. I have arranged the two sleeves here, and the next step is to go ahead and cut out the lining for all the pieces I have on the table. So in case you want a standing effect for your sleeve, please add interfacing to the lining of your sleeve after cutting. You're going to add interfacing to the lining piece. But for me here, I didn't add any interfacing to the lining of the sleeve. So if you want your sleeve to stand, please add interfacing. And after that, go ahead and stitch the bottom part of the sleeve. After stitching, this is what you are going to have. You are going to now match the notched point on the sleeve on each other. After matching it, go ahead and make a top stitch to secure the sleeves together. After I was done with that, this is what I have. The next step is to go ahead and join the side of the sleeve. After joining the side of the sleeve, go ahead and make pleats with the excess you have at the top of the sleeve. You are going to make pleats before fixing it to the armhole of the dress. The last step on this dress is the bow at the back. So I made a bow in my last tutorial, so go watch that if you don't know how to make a bow. To fix the bow to the dress, you can use a press button. You're going to fix a press button on the part where you're going to fix the bow on the dress, and also fix the other side of the press button on the bow. That way, the bow will be detachable from the dress. If you watched to the end of this video, thank you so much. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye.